Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the I Am Groot shorts. Because these are so short, I'm just going to put everything in one review. I am going to include time codes so you can kind of skip around in case you're like, hey, I actually am curious what you had to think of what you thought about this particular short. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Just because they are so short, that's why I'm deciding to just put it all in one. But starting with the first episode, I am watching these one at a time. So first one, I thought it was super cute. I was like, oh, this is super short. I'm like, oh, you're actually going to go through the intro? Isn't that going to eat up? Never mind. They fast forward through. I was like, oh, that's a cute way of handling that. Obviously, I like this picking up after Guardians 1, where like Groot is sprouting again, because the last time we only got one scene with this Groot, and that was like the post credits where like Drax is cleaning his weapon and he kind of turns back, it's a Jackson 5 song playing, and Groot is dancing. That's all we really got. So to kind of get this cute little thing of, first, he's getting all the pamperment and treatment because it's like, oh, watching him grow and getting pampered and stuff. But the moment the cup cracked, is like, I guess, I don't know whether the machine was just like, okay, you no longer need, I don't have to take care of you. Or maybe it treated him like any other plant. Like, oh, it's time to kind of root you out, throw you out. And it's like, put I don't know if that'd just be a straight up bonsai tree or not. And it's in its place, and Groot getting jealous because like, oh, you're the one getting all the pamperment. They literally take my blanket from me and wrap you up, and he's trying to get his revenge, which I also love how they play with some of Groot's ability. I know it's weird to say, but you don't see it too often. The fact is that he can just break his body and just regenerate it immediately. It comes up from time to time, obviously when his arm was used to make Stormbreaker in Infinity War, but his arm, he had tangled his arms around himself, which immediately I'm I immediately think of almost a Mr. Fantastic thing, but more so I could see Luffy from One Piece doing that. Obviously not breaking apart, his powers don't work like that, but the fact is he just kind of broke his arms off so effortlessly because it looks super painful. Well, to be fair, it was a burning piece of metal he was touching, so that's probably what he was more so screaming from rather than having to cut his own arm off. Because I'm actually trying to remember, because I don't remember, I haven't rewatched Endgame, I have to do that, but obviously, he fought a little bit when they were in Wakanda, him, Thor, and Rocket, when they were in Wakanda near the end of Infinity War, but I was about to say, we haven't seen Groot fight in a while, so it's just interesting not having seen, his abilities in a while, so you kind of forget, what he is capable of doing. But, beef with an inanimate object, and I'm saying that as someone who doesn't know if Groot can, for all we know, that bonsai is over there running its mouth to Groot. You never know. And just him having beef with something that isn't fighting back, isn't really paying attention to him, it's doing its own thing. Once again, we can't hear it, and we can hear Groot, but we don't know if that thing's talking mad crap to Groot. So Groot, doing all he can. Legitimately, him rapid punching it and hurting himself is super cute. And smashing both of them falling and him kind of getting up and stumbling on his own feet. Be like, oh, I can walk now. And it's like, oh, so we kind of immediately. I thought the whole episode. I think the episode's title went in Groot's first steps. I thought the whole episode short would have been about him walking about as baby Groot, kind of was in. But to be fair, we kind of got a lot of that in Guardians 2. So it's just before we get to even the Guardians 2 of it all, But yeah, feeling victorious and kind of rubbing in its face, haha, I won. But then he actually legitimately feels bad. And I was like, I thought it was so cute. He's like, I wrapped you up in a blanket. You're good. I'm good. And keeping the machine away. And he's feeding himself, but also feeding him bonsai. Sadly, one of its limbs broke off. But, casualties of war, I guess. But I just thought it was just kind of a nice little thing. And once again, just kind of playing with that notion of that how Groot was at the beginning. It's once again, we didn't get to spend too much time. All we got was, I guess this was almost that same equivalency of that same, probably about the same length as that post credits itself. But either way. And now moving on to the second episode. This episode made me almost go wait, is Groot going to have beef with someone every episode? The fact is that yeah, I thought that was so cute. He just putting the sticks together. I didn't expect that to turn into what it was. I thought he's going to okay, he's going to put the stick together. They're not going to work. He's going to do it again, and it's not going to work. But it did work, and he's like, I am Groot. 5 minutes later, built himself essentially a treehouse until that bird, which that tongue thing was weird, especially because you get like all you see is that like thing in its tongue moving. And you're just like, oh, that looks weird. And then it snatches up his place. I was like, yo, that's messed up. And then it gets grabbed. I'm like, oh. I was like, well, I guess it kind of got its comeuppance, but it's also like, the sad circle of life. And then it's just like Groot like has a tantrum for 37 minutes, discovers that small like colony of like creatures underneath the rock, which obviously very Gulliver's Travel-esque element. And it's also super messed up of him. I guess there's a level of, hey, I get control over these people. I got punked by that bird and it took my spot. And then that dinosaur or whatever grabbed it, like could look like it was almost like a pterodactyl or something. Something grabbed it, ended up destroying my house in the process. So like, oh, I have control. Like I was like, yo, he was doing some messed up stuff. Like, you know, blowing wind at them. They're throwing like they're like slingshotting like rocks at him. They're firing cannons at him. But obviously it all works out when he drops the leaf on them and they're happy. It's like, yay! Like, because at first I thought like, okay, we're going to have like Groot being worshipped as a god. Obviously it's a short, so probably if it was a little longer, you'd probably lean into that. But then he comes over with the other leaves. I'm like, oh, that's not going to work out. It's just like, once again, expectations. I was like, okay, he's going to drop it on them and it's going to be too much and crush them. Didn't expect him to step on them. I was like, oh. I was like, that's dark. I was like, and he's just going to put the rock back on top of it. Once again, kind of like your classic animation, like joke to do something like that, just like sweep it under and pretend like nothing happened. Very, very kid-like thing to do regardless. It's not even just an animated thing, just kids in general do that. We've all done that. I've done that, definitely. And just walks away. I was like, are you really ending it like that? I did like that end thing of saying I am Groot. I like the color and just like the little drawings on it. I thought that was neat. And then they pop out, and I'm like, okay, good. They're not dead. I was like, because I was about to say, that's pretty dark for you just to be like, and Groot killed them and left. But it's like, nah, they're okay, and they're all still feeding off that leaf. So it's like, okay, they're good. So it all works out, but I was still kind of, I was about to say, that's dark to end it like that. But it's like, okay, once again, subverting expectations, so. Now moving on to episode 3. Like I said last episode, I feel like Groot wants all the smoke. The fact of the matter is, I like the little, like, cute, first and foremost, like, wearing the pajamas. That's adorable. I think that's such a cute thing, using, like, that, stepwatch as, like kind of a headlight. And then you also kind of get into that point of, like, well, Groot used the bathroom, and you're like, what is that? Okay, don't need to know the ins and outs of that. But once again, kind of subverting expectations. I mean, you already see it a little bit from the trailer, but I wasn't sure like how this was going to start off. Like, it did kind of start off a little, well, just Groot looking all over the place for it, and then finally finding it, and it's like, oh, I am Groot. He said, no, I'm Groot. And I'm like, okay. Groot wants all the smoke too. I'm like, okay, are they going to fight it out? And they become friends? But it's like, then it turns, in very Guardians fashion, it turns into a dance-off. And it's like, okay, of course. And it feels very befitting, and I'm like, it makes you wonder, did Groot had to have learned that from Star-Lord. So the fact is, starts busting a move, and then so does the other. And they're having fun until the creature's like, no, you're messing up here. You're supposed to do this, and this. And I'm like, I was surprised when I heard it talk. I was like, oh. It's like, okay. And I guess it's like, maybe it's just kind of a shape-shifting creature that, snuck aboard or whatever, and was just, oh, like, why did it start off like, I guess it likes to mirror people, but then it's like, no, you're doing it wrong. And I'm wondering, is that big form its real form, or is that just another form that is copied from something else? Either way, it's like, right, it's got all these critiques about what he's doing. He's like, no. And then, like, he hits the eject button on it. And there's something about the way he says, just like, I am Groot. It's almost like, yeah, you're not Groot. I'm Groot. Like, you never know, like, obviously, what he's actually saying, because we don't have Rocket to translate, but it feels almost like I am Groot, or like, I'm the better dancer. Don't try and tell me I can't. I mean, it could be a culmination of everything. So few words that can mean so much, So, and then kind of salsas away, but I'm like, once again, kind of jacked up of you, but it's like, I'm sure he's going to be fine. He's just going to go off and annoy someone else. I guess it's kind of all Groot cares about. It's like, yeah, it was fine and dandy until you told me you don't tell. No one puts Groot in a corner type of situation. 4th episode in a row. Once again, Groot, all the smoke. Nevertheless, that was cute, the whole like bath thing, which I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I wonder, would any mud do that, or is it specifically that mud? I wonder, because like obviously all the stuff Groot put into it, like that poor like almost looked like a firefly, almost like bug, where squirted some of that into it to kind of get a bubbly feel to it. Then also the berries from that nearby thing, and just kind of treating it like a spa. Is it all of that? Because later on when he goes back to it, it's just muddy water again. So is it just the mud in general? Could any water do it, or is it specifically the muddy water from this planet? Am I thinking too much? Yes. But I like the thought of, like, the fact is he tested it out, tasted it too, and I'm like, I mean, I guess you are a tree, but what trees are like mud? It's kind of what but I mean, I guess it's like, you would think soil would be more the thing, but maybe, you know, what is mud if not like wet dirt? So, but I love how cute it is, all the different, you know, it's like, oh, like, first, like, so many leaves and stuff, cuts them down, it's like, oh, this is awesome, doesn't last long, so keep going back and forth, the giant head, the, like, big, like, mustache and everything, I thought was super cute, and obviously the dress, I am Groot, kind of like a Southern belle at a ball, like, introducing herself, I do declare, and then, like, that creature, which there is a little bit of a cuteness to that creature until it starts laughing, and you're like, oh, you're a dick. And it's like it attacks Groot, and the moment Groot loses some of its leaves, it's laughing at him. And then he goes back, but he's used up all the mud, or either it dried up, either way. And then it starts laughing at him again. I was like, oh, you're kind of a douchebag. And then Groot steals its fur from it, and you see it shriveling, shivering. Jesus, I couldn't say the word. And you're just like, oh, you kind of feel he's kind of a dick, but you kind of feel bad for him. But it's like, Groot, walk away. You're like, I feel fabulous. I'm fabulous, and this time it's permanent. Kind of, once again, still went about it kind of a dick way. Yes, he was kind of a dick to you, but it's like, well, to be fair, we know Groot can be. I mean, he hasn't reached his teenage years yet. Cause we know that's when the douchebaggery really starts. Then. Because, you know, teenagers are teenagers, but kind of got a mean streak in them that I feel like we didn't necessarily see that. But to be fair, I guess it's like, right, we never get to hear what Groot says. Groot might be talking all kinds of spicy. The only person that can understand is Rocket. So, or even like adult Groot could have been talking all that smoke and we just didn't know it, you know? But either way, I still walked away. Yeah, that creature was a douchebag, but it still kind of felt bad for him. Like I said, to some extent, like that almost like hyena laugh, but just its colorfulness, it looked kind of cute. And it was just like, you know, it was, you know, being disturbed of its rest by Groot. So it's like, yeah, he kind of started it, but he also finished it. So. And now moving on to what I think is kind of the season finale for the shorts. A very, very cute. I love Groot going around collecting all this stuff. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? You're getting some fur from Rocket. You stole soap. I couldn't tell. I was like, is that supposed to be Star-Lord? But it's like, no, apparently it was Drax. And just went around stealing stuff from everybody and started putting stuff together. I was like, oh, there's even an Alf comic. I was like, wait, I didn't know Alf was ever existed in a comic. Oh, that's interesting. Which also you start thinking to yourself, it's like, oh, so that's interesting to know that Alf is a comic in the MCU's canon. And it's, you know, it's just always interesting to know what exists and what doesn't exist. Like, oh, hey, like knowing, like, hey, in in some DC properties, Marvel exists. You know, it's just one of those neat little details I thought was kind of interesting. Either way, at first I was like, oh, is Groot making his own comic or something? Because of the way he's kind of whiting over everything. And I'm like, what's this all about? Well, I was like, what's the soap got to do with anything? But I guess it's like, it's essentially a crayon. And then blowing up, I guess, kind of, it looked like it was like a superconductor or something like that, just just so he could blow it up to get the glitter from it. And then there's a massive hole in the ship now, and it's like, oh, don't worry. At first he's panicking a little bit, but then he's like, oh, taking a sweet time covering it with tape. And then Rocket, and I thought honestly it was the sweetest thing. Rocket was like, Groot, are you dead? Are you? Oh, never mind, you're right there. Which I thought was so, because that's also the sad thing too, is this is before Infinity War. So obviously, like, because he's also fresh off of Guardians 1 where he thought Groot was dead. Groot sacrificed himself to protect all of them. So he was kind of scared from him. He's like, oh no, cool, there you are. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was sweet. But also it plays into like that Rocket being kind of like his father role. And I love that. Where it's just kind of like, wait, how did you have the walls on fire and wet? It's like, wait, is this Drax's soap? He was complaining about it. I love that you just kind of toss it aside. And And he's just like, what have you done? Like, why are you, and it's like, oh, what is this? Is it trash? And putting on his glasses, it better be a written apology. And he's like, oh, well, this is cute. We should put this up on the fridge, Groot. And it's like, once again, like a father being so proud of their child, being like, yeah. And then it's kind of like, oh, I can't stay mad at you. Because he's like, oh, you think I'm going to forgive you just because you do something cute? It's like, you immediately fall for it. Which I love that, like, Rocket has such a rough exterior, but as we've come to know over the movies, Rocket is such a softie, and it's just like, once again, having rewatched Infinity War like a while back, but like hearing that line now having in-game context, knowing how the movie ended, him being like, when he told Thor, like Thor's like, oh, I have nothing to lose. Rocket's like, I have a lot to lose. I could lose a lot, and he did. He lost. The only other person that was left was Nebula amongst the Guardians, but nevertheless, so it's just, and it's sad knowing that. Obviously, this is, once again, after Guardians 1, but before Volume 2, so Infinity War hasn't happened yet, so him kind of be scared for a moment, because, once again, at the end of Volume 1, but now it's like, knowing what the future holds for him, makes it even sadder when you actually really start thinking about the MCU's canon. And he almost got sucked out the ship, and then Groot just, like, luckily grabs him, and it's like, oh, cool, that worked out, but the drawing he made is, like, floating out in space with some other stuff, so... I just thought that was kind of a nice, and I thought it was kind of a nice one to, because there was talks about Rocket, because I was like, oh, is that all we're going to get, a Rocket just like Groot cutting his tail? But it's like, no, we got more Rocket, and I thought that was nice. I thought it was just a cute episode, it's like, especially some stuff between them like that, I thought was kind of interesting. Also interesting timing too, because like we know, like at least Volume 3 at least is talked about, like we're going to learn more about Rocket's past, and it's just kind of a nice little through line just for like him and Groot and their relationship, and just like what like their story over the two Guardians that we've gotten. I'm also curious like what's going to happen in the holiday special potentially. Like that's still a big question mark. So like I said, I think this is pseudo the season finale. I don't know if they're necessarily going to like lump this all together in one season, or because I think I heard that they are going to put out more shorts. I think it's either going to be later this year or early next year, but I think they already have plans to put out more. So I don't know if those are going to be like the season 2 shorts, or whether they're just going to be like, oh, this is the episodes 6 through 10, or is it going to be episodes 1 through 5 of season 2. I'm just going to label this as season 1, and I'll change it appropriately, when the shorts come out. But I'm excited for more. I thought these were just kind of neat little ones. This one is probably my favorite just because of that, just because of the Groot and Rocket of it all. And once again, him playing that fatherly role probably ends up being my favorite, but I really thoroughly enjoyed all of them. I just, once again, just the word I'm sure me and other people have said a million times is cute and adorable. So what I'm also interested in too is, well, the next shorts, because obviously, once again, this is all between Guardians 1 and 2, so the next set could be that too, but there's still also, like, right, between Guardians 2 and Infinity War, and then, like, there's also, I mean, depending on how, like, they want to go about it, they probably won't do it just because it's, like, I mean, these are staying, like, kind of animated to some extent, so I don't see them, like, adding in, like, full-blown live-action people. I was about to say, like, some of the Thor stuff they could probably lean into, but like I brought up previously, like, dickish, like, teen Groot, they could play around with that in some shorts as well, but they'll probably keep baby Groot for a while longer, that nice merchandising to kind of keep that in. Everyone's like, oh, you love, people love baby Groot, people love baby Yoda, or Grogu. So it's like, hey, let's keep baby Groot for a little while longer, so we'll see how they end up handling that going forward. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good